What happens when a CEO orders the seafood special at his own restaurant and ends up in the ER that night? Quentin Maddox had inherited the 12-store seafood bistro chain from his late father 6 years ago, and while he'd grown the company's profits, he hadn't stepped foot in one of the locations in nearly a year. He trusted his district managers to handle the day-to-day. But lately, something didn't sit right. Reviews across 3 locations had started slipping. Not bad enough to cause panic, but enough to raise his eyebrows. One review in particular stuck out. Got the seafood special. Tasted weird. Spent the night hugging my toilet. Never again. Quentin had seen enough. He wasn't about to rely on filtered feedback or sugar-coated reports. He needed to see it for himself. He chose the Westwood location, store number 9. It was one of the oldest in the chain, but had always been steady. No one there had ever met him personally. His father had hired most of the senior staff long ago, and turnover was low. A week later, Quentin walked into the restaurant as Ray, a food blogger with a small following and an interest in hole-in-the-wall seafood joints. His beard was gone, replaced by a clean shave. His hair was dyed light brown, and he wore thick glasses. He even had a small mole added to his cheek to throw things off. At 6:15 p.m. on a Friday, the dining area was at half capacity. The place looked tired. The walls needed paint. A ceiling fan squeaked with every spin. He walked up to the hostess stand where a young woman named Angela greeted him. "Hi there, welcome." "Just one." "Yes, please," he said, his voice slightly raspier than usual. "Heard good things. Excited to try the seafood special." Angela hesitated. "You sure?" Well, it's been hit or miss lately." Quentin raised an eyebrow. "Really?" She leaned in slightly. "Just between us, I'd go with the crab cakes if you're set on seafood. Or the chicken." He smiled politely. "I'll take the special." She nodded, lips tight. "All right. Your call." He was seated near the kitchen. From his spot, he could hear bits of conversation between the servers and cooks. The kitchen door swung open every few minutes, revealing a sweaty, irritated head chef barking orders Manny. Angela returned with a glass of water. "Your server will be over shortly." 15 minutes passed before a thin man with sunken eyes approached.
"I'm Peter."
"You ready to order?" "I already did. The seafood special." Peter rubbed his face.
"Right. Sorry."
Long day. He walked off without writing anything down. Another 10 minutes. Quentin watched as 2 families who arrived after him were already eating. Finally, a steaming plate was dropped in front of him without a word. It smelled strange, like fish left out too long in the sun. He poked at it. The shrimp was rubbery. The scallops were grayish. Still, he took a small bite. The taste hit him like a slap, sour, metallic, wrong. His stomach turned almost instantly. He forced himself to swallow, then sipped water, trying to stay calm. He waved Angela over. "Can I ask, how fresh is this seafood?" Angela looked around, lowered her voice. "Honestly, I don't know anymore. Manny's been ordering stuff from some warehouse that isn't one of our usual vendors.
Cheaper, he says.
But it smells bad sometimes." "We've told him." Quentin nodded slowly. "Thanks for being honest." By the time he got home that night, he felt it. Sweats, cramps, nausea. The next morning, he was in urgent care. Food poisoning. He didn't tell anyone who he was. Not yet. But he knew what he had to do. Quentin returned to the Westwood location the following afternoon. This time, not as a customer. He walked through the back door with a clipboard, wearing a plain black polo and khakis. He was Taylor, a temporary trainee sent by corporate to observe kitchen operations across all stores. No one questioned him. The staff assumed he was just another faceless hire from the head office. Manny, the head chef, barely glanced at him. "Stay out of the way. I don't have time to babysit." Quentin watched as Manny pulled out a bin of shrimp from the walk-in cooler. The label was faded, but Quentin squinted and made out the date 3 weeks ago. He turned to a line cook, a young woman with her hair tied back. She looked worn down but focused. "You know how long that shrimp's been in there?" Quentin asked. She hesitated. "Too long. I told him yesterday. He said to use it or don't come back." "What's your name?" Quentin asked. "Ariel," she said. "I'm just trying to keep my job." He gave her a small nod. "You're doing more than most." Quentin stood in that kitchen for hours, watching corners being cut, expired food being served, and staff walking on eggshells. He had seen enough. And he wasn't done yet. Quentin stood in the prep area, clipboard in hand, blending in just enough to be ignored, but not so much that he couldn't observe. From the corner of his eye, he watched as Manny dropped a half-thawed bag of scallops into a pan without rinsing them. The sizzle drowned out the low conversation between two servers by the dry storage door. "He doesn't even check temps anymore," one of them muttered. "Just throw stuff on the grill." Quentin noted the comment, but didn't interrupt. He needed to see the full picture before acting. The walk-in cooler reeked faintly of ammonia. He stepped inside during a lull and scanned the shelves. No FIFO labels. Several containers had cracked lids. A tray of mussels sat in cloudy water, uncovered. The smell confirmed what he already suspected: these weren't just close to expiration. They were well past it. He stepped out and nearly collided with Peter, the server who had taken his order the night before. Peter looked startled. "You're with corporate?" he asked, eyes darting to the clipboard. "Temporary kitchen audit," Quentin said. "Just reviewing procedures." Peter rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, good luck. Been asking for new gloves for a week." He gestured toward the cracked latex at his fingertips. "Still waiting." Quentin nodded, jotting it down. "How long you been here?" "For years," Peter said, glancing toward the dining room. "Long enough to stop expecting things to change." A bell rang. Manny barked something unintelligible and slammed a plate on the pass. Peter grabbed it and vanished through the swinging door. Quentin turned back toward the prep area just as Ariel walked in, wiping her hands on a towel. She paused when she saw him. "You're still here?" "Yeah," Quentin said, taking notes. "Observing flow." She gave a small shrug. "Not much flow to observe. We're short 2 cooks. One quit last week. The other called out 3 times and Manny stopped scheduling him." "Are you covering both shifts?" She nodded. "Double since Tuesday. I'm supposed to be off today, but he called me at 10 and said get in, or don't come back." Quentin wrote that down. "You ever bring this up to anyone above him?" She shook her head. "No point. Last guy who complained got his hours cut. Quiet ones last longer around here." A loud crash from the back interrupted them. A tray had fallen. Manny stormed out, red in the face. "Who left the fryer basket on the edge?" he snapped. "You people want to burn the place down?" No one answered. Quentin stepped slightly to the side, watching how the others reacted. No eye contact. Shoulders tense. Manny turned to Ariel. "Go mop that before someone sues." "I'm on sauté right now," she said, glancing toward the stove. "Then stop talking to clipboard boy and do your job." Quentin's eyes narrowed. "She's mid-shift on the line. You should have the busser handle that." Manny squinted. "You here to observe or run my kitchen?" Quentin didn't flinch. "Just making recommendations." Manny muttered something under his breath and disappeared into the storage room. Later that afternoon, Quentin stepped outside for a quick breath of air. The alley was quiet, just the faint hum of dumpsters and a few pigeons picking at a torn trash bag. Angela was out there too, leaning against the wall, sipping from a water bottle. "You following everyone around or just Manny?" she asked, not unkindly. "Trying to understand the bigger picture," he said. "How long you been here?" 18 months, she said. "I was bussing tables before this." "You like it?" She gave a tired laugh. "I like the customers. I like Ariel, Peter. The rest. Depends on the day. What's the hardest part? She looked down the alley, then back at him. Watching good people get burned out. Ariel's here more than anyone. Manny steals tips from the shared jar when no one's looking. We all know it, but no one says anything because we need the hours. Quentin's grip on the clipboard tightened. Are you serious? She nodded. Saw it with my own eyes last Friday. Whole jar was lighter after he moved it to the shelf for safety. He wrote it down, jaw tight. Anyone from corporate ever visit? Not since the old man died, she said. Used to be someone came every few months. They stopped showing up after the merger. Back inside, the dinner rush built slowly. Quentin took a position near the dish pit, where he could observe without being in the way. The dishwasher, a heavy-set man in his 50s, moved slowly, favoring his left leg. You all right? Quentin asked. Bad knee, the man said. No insurance. Been here 6 years. Guess I'm part of the furniture now. Has anyone ever offered help? He laughed. Help? Boss told me to wear a brace and take ibuprofen. Said it's cheaper than hiring someone new. Quentin clenched his pen, scribbling fast. The final straw came just after 7. A young server named Danny came running into the kitchen, pale and shaken. Table 12 says their fish is raw inside. Manny rolled his eyes. Microwave it. You can't be serious. He threw a towel on the counter. You want to tell them to wait another 20 minutes? She hesitated. They already sent back their first plate. They're getting upset. Manny grabbed the plate, shoved it into the microwave, and hit a button. When it dinged, he handed it back. Serve it. If they don't like it, they can leave. Quentin stepped forward. You're about to serve microwaved fish to a customer who already complained once? Manny turned. You take issue with that? Yes, Quentin said. And I'm not going to stand by while you keep putting people at risk. Manny threw up his hands. Then go back to your desk job and leave the line cooking to the rest of us. Quentin took a slow breath. I'm not a trainee.
I'm Quentin Maddox.
I own this company. The room froze. Pans hissed. Knives paused mid-chop. Manny blinked, then scoffed. Yeah, right. Quentin reached into his pocket and pulled out his ID. Held it up. Silence. Angela stepped into the kitchen, mouth slightly open. You're really him? I am, Quentin said. He looked around. And I've seen enough. He turned to Manny. You're done here. Clock out and leave.
Now.
Manny laughed, but no one joined him. He looked around the room, waiting for support. None came. You can't just fire me without. Yes, I can, Quentin said. Stealing tips, serving expired food, threatening staff, and endangering customers? You're lucky I don't press charges. Manny's face twisted. He yanked off his apron, threw it on the ground, and stormed out. Quentin turned to the rest of the staff. We're shutting down for the night. Everyone finish what you need to, then go home. You'll be paid in full for the shift. No one moved for a moment. Then Ariel stepped forward. What happens next? Quentin met her eyes. We fix this. For real. He walked through the restaurant, flipping off lights as he went. The dining room was half full, but he approached each table personally, offered apologies, comped every meal, and explained that the location was closing early for a mandatory safety review. Most customers were surprised. A few were annoyed, but no one argued when he said the owner was taking responsibility. By 9, the last customer was gone. The staff stood near the front, uncertain, waiting. Quentin faced them. I'll be back tomorrow with a regional team. We're going to do a full audit of the kitchen, retrain anyone who wants to stay, and hire more people so you're not breaking yourselves to keep this place afloat. If you've got concerns, bring them. If you've got ideas, even better. Peter raised a hand. And if we've been here through all the crap, do we still have jobs? Quentin nodded. Absolutely. You're the ones holding this place together. Angela leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Why now? Because I got sick eating the same food we've been serving, Quentin said. And I realized I stopped seeing what was happening inside my own company. That ends tonight. They all watched him. No one clapped. No one cheered. But something shifted. A weight lifted. As the staff filed out, quiet but lighter, Ariel lingered by the door. Do you really mean it? She asked. The changes? Yes, Quentin said. And I'll prove it. She nodded once and left. Quentin stood alone in the dim dining room, the smell of bleach and old fryer oil hanging in the air, and made a silent vow. This would never happen again. The next morning, Quentin arrived at the Westwood location before sunrise. The air was still cool, the sky a murky gray. A regional safety inspector, 2 HR partners, and a maintenance tech followed behind him. No cameras, no press, just quiet urgency. Inside, the kitchen was silent. Lights off. Counters clean. It felt unfamiliar without the usual heat or movement. Quentin set his folder on a table in the dining room and motioned for the others to gather. He spoke low. We're not here to fix this in a day, but we're starting now. No shortcuts. The HR reps nodded. The inspector began unpacking a set of thermometers, gloves, and a clipboard filled with compliance forms. The maintenance tech moved toward the back, ready to assess the cooler and ventilation system. Quentin turned to the door as Ariel entered, hair still damp from a rushed shower, backpack slung low. She stopped when she saw the others. Didn't expect all this, she said, setting her things down. You shouldn't have had to, he replied. You still want to be here? I want it to be better, she answered. That's why I came in early. He glanced at the kitchen. You'll be helping lead today's reset, if you're up for it. She nodded once, no hesitation. By 8, the rest of the crew trickled in. Angela looked cautiously at the unfamiliar faces, but straightened when she saw Quentin in the center. Peter came in next, followed by Danny. Even the dishwasher, limping slightly, arrived and leaned quietly against the counter. Quentin waited until they were all assembled. You don't need to trust me right away, he said. But I'm asking you to give me a chance to earn it. Starting today, this location is under direct oversight. We're handling 2 things, food safety and working conditions. If you've got an issue, say it. No more silence. He stepped aside and let the inspector begin. The group split off, the HR team setting up in the office, the inspector taking the kitchen line apart piece by piece, and Quentin walking with Ariel through the storage areas. She gestured toward a shelf stacked with dented cans. This stuff's been here for weeks. Labels peeled off. I don't even know what half of it is. He crouched down, checked the bottoms. Some were bulging. He didn't say anything, just flagged them with a marker and moved on. At the dry storage area, Angela joined them. Found a bag of rice with holes chewed through, she said. Looks like mice. I didn't know who to tell before. We'll bring in pest control today, Quentin said. Thanks for not walking past it. Angela took out her phone. I've got pictures of the cooler from last week. You should see how bad it got before the weekend. Quentin glanced at the photos, yellowed fish flesh, condensation dripping from a cracked vent. He handed her back the phone. That's over now. In the office, Peter was seated across from the HR rep. Quentin stepped in as the conversation was wrapping up. You all right? He asked. Peter folded his arms. I'm here, aren't I? That's not what I asked. Peter looked away. I got 2 kids. One of them's got asthma. I couldn't risk losing hours, so I kept my head down. But I was serving food I wouldn't give my own family. That's been eating at me. You're not invisible anymore, Quentin said. You want to stay and help us rebuild? Peter's eyes flicked up. Only if we're serious about change. We are. Quentin turned to the HR rep. Did anyone else report serious issues? Mostly schedule changes, overtime without approval, and the tip theft, she said. But one thing stood out. Ariel's been logging hours that don't match payroll. Quentin frowned. How far back? 6 weeks. She's been working doubles, but only being paid for partial shifts. The system was overridden manually. He stepped out, found Ariel near the sink, scrubbing out a metal tray. How many hours have you worked that weren't on your check? She didn't answer immediately. Then, I stopped counting. That's wage theft. It ends today. She paused, then said, I didn't want to be labeled difficult. I figured I'd get let go. You're not the problem, he said. You've been holding this place together. By noon, the inspector called everyone into the dining room. He stood beside a stack of forms and a laptop. Kitchen was flagged for 6 safety violations, he said. Most critical was improper storage temperatures and expired proteins. We've marked everything. You cannot reopen until these are resolved. Quentin nodded. We'll bring in a supply truck tonight. Replace every perishable item. The cooler's being serviced this afternoon. We're not rushing it. One of the line cooks, a quiet man named Luis, raised his hand. What happens to our shifts this week? You'll be paid for the full schedule, even if we're closed, Quentin said. We're not cutting anyone while we do this. And if you want out, no hard feelings. But if you stay, we do it right. Luis nodded and lowered his hand. Peter looked at him. You serious about all of it? Quentin nodded. Try me. The maintenance tech appeared in the doorway. Cooler's compressor shot. It's been running 30 degrees over safe range. Quentin turned to the inspector. Replace it. Full unit if needed. Already scheduled, the tech said.
Truquez en route.
At 2:30, the regional HR lead pulled him aside.
There's one more issue, she said.
Angela reported something about verbal harassment. Not from Manny. From one of the prep cooks. Quentin's expression darkened.
Who?
Name's Curtis. She said he made repeated comments about her appearance, ignored her when she asked him to stop, and once blocked her from leaving the back hallway. Quentin didn't hesitate. Where is he now? Didn't show today, but he's on the schedule tomorrow. Quentin pulled out his phone and dialed. Curtis answered on the 3rd ring. This is Quentin Maddox, he said. You no longer work for this company. Do not return to the Westwood location or any other property. Your final check will be mailed. The man tried to say something, but Quentin cut the call and turned to the HR lead. Make sure his name is flagged in the system. 0 tolerance. She nodded sharply. Later that afternoon, as the staff helped clear out the expired goods, a small flatbed arrived with fresh produce, proteins, and boxed goods. Every item was date-checked, logged, and stored under supervision. No one cut corners. No one asked to leave early. Angela stood near the dry storage, watching as the new rice bags were placed on sealed pallets. You ever think about management?
Quentin asked. She turned.
Me? You've got instincts. You see problems before they spread.
I'm 19.
So, was I when I started running delivery routes, he said. Age doesn't matter. Effort does. She didn't answer, but her gaze lingered on the clipboard in his hand. As the sun dipped behind the strip mall across the lot, the last shelf was stocked, the cooler temperature finally held steady, and the dining room lights were dimmed. Quentin stood at the register, watching the team check locks, wipe down counters, and toss out the last trash bags.
No scouting. No tensión.
Just quiet movement. Peter approached, wiping his hands on a towel. Feels different. It is. You sticking around tomorrow? For as long as it takes. Peter nodded slowly. Then maybe we've got a shot. Quentin watched him leave, then turned toward the kitchen. Ariel stood at the line, staring at the empty prep station. He walked over. You all right? She nodded once. I didn't think anyone would ever care. Now you know different. She looked at him. What happens after this place is fixed? We do the same thing everywhere else. She studied him for a moment. You really going to be in the field? Every week. No more filters. No more distance. She looked down at the clean counter, then back at him. Then let me know where to start. He handed her a fresh clipboard. Kitchen standards. Day 1. 3 days later, the Westwood location reopened under reduced hours. The sign on the front door read, "Under renovation, open with limited menu. Staff training in progress." It wasn't a PR stunt. There were no balloons, no marketing push. Just a quiet return to operations with a core team and a different tone. Quentin stood near the kitchen pass, sleeves rolled up, clipboard tucked under his arm. Ariel was reviewing the prep list with Luis, who now ran the midday line. Angela was at the host stand, checking the new reservation system installed that morning. Peter was training Danny on the updated POS interface they'd rolled out to replace the outdated touchscreen that used to freeze mid-order. The dining room had been scrubbed down. Old wall art was replaced with a simple chalkboard menu. Ceiling fans were tightened. The carpet had been pulled and replaced with sealed flooring. None of it was flashy, but it looked cared for. Quentin stepped toward the kitchen as the first order ticket printed. Luis glanced at it, called out the items, and the line moved in sync. Ariel dropped scallops onto the grill, checked the timer, and adjusted the heat with a small flick of her wrist. She didn't speak unless she had to. She didn't need to. Everyone around her followed her tempo. At the expo line, Quentin leaned closer. "You need a sous chef," he said quietly. Ariel didn't glance up. "I know. I want you to do the first round of interviews," he said. "You'll be training whoever gets hired." She nodded once. "Then I want someone who listens." He watched her plate the dish, add a sprig of parsley, and wipe the edge with precision. "You're building the kitchen you deserve," he said. Outside, 2 customers walked in, an older couple who'd eaten there for years. Angela greeted them with a practiced calm, offered water, and explained the new menu options without rushing. She'd written the script herself, built around transparency. No more vague descriptions. Every ingredient was listed. Every dish was made to order. Peter walked over with a notepad, knelt slightly to make eye contact with the guests, and took their order without interruption. As he returned to the counter, Quentin stepped over. "How does it feel?" Peter shrugged. "Strange. Good, I guess. Like we're not bracing for something to go wrong. Because now if it does, it gets fixed." Peter looked over his shoulder at the kitchen. "Just keeping it steady for now. We're not perfect." Quentin nodded. "We don't need perfect. We need honest." At the same time, the HR lead, Elena, arrived through the side door. She waved once and motioned for Quentin to follow her outside. He joined her near the back lot, where a silver sedan idled with the window down. A man in a gray polo sat behind the wheel, expression unreadable. "That's Curtis," Elena said. "He showed up this morning. Said he never got a formal termination letter. Asked to speak with you." Quentin took a breath, stepped toward the car, and stopped just short of the window. "You're not allowed on property," he said evenly. "You were removed for cause." Curtis leaned back. "Didn't even ask for my side." Because 3 separate reports matched. Unwanted comments. Blocking a hallway. "You're done." Curtis shook his head. "You're overreacting. If you step out of this car, I'll call the police," Quentin said without raising his voice. "You're trespassing." Curtis muttered something under his breath and pulled away. Elena looked over. "You want to send a company-wide notice?" Quentin nodded. "Blacklist him from all locations. Forward any inquiries to legal." Back inside, Angela was walking Danny through the new reservation board. The younger girl was scribbling notes, nodding quickly. "Only seat walk-ins in the zones with available coverage. Don't overbook the middle tables. That's where the runners need space to pass through." Danny stopped writing for a second. "Did you come up with all this?" Angela smiled faintly. "I've watched every table turnover for the last year. Figured it was time to use that for something useful." Quentin approached, looked at the board. "You're running this place like a floor manager." Angela hesitated. "I'm just trying to give Danny a break. She's new." You're doing more than that, he said. I want you to shadow the general manager next week. If you're serious about moving up, I'll make space for you. She blinked. I don't have a business degree. Neither did my father when he opened the first store, Quentin said. You've got better instincts than most I've hired with degrees. She nodded slowly. Then I'll show up early. In the kitchen, Ariel stepped away from the line and pulled Quentin aside. There's something I need to say. He leaned in. I don't want to be kitchen lead forever, she said. I want to go to culinary school. I've been saving, but it's going to take another year. He crossed his arms. What's your plan? I stay here, build the team, set the standard. Then when it's stable, I go. He nodded. You'll have a scholarship. Full ride. Company will cover it. She froze. You don't have to, I know. But we need chefs who lead the right way. If you're willing to come back after, you've got a role waiting. She gripped the edge of the prep table for a moment, then looked up. Then I'll build it right before I go. Quentin turned toward the dining area. The older couple had just finished their meal. Peter cleared the plates, spoke briefly with them, and returned to the counter. They said it's the best the food's tasted in years, he told Quentin. Asked if we got a new chef. Quentin smiled slightly. Tell them yes. Through the afternoon, orders moved cleanly. No backups. No missing items. The kitchen didn't scramble. The servers didn't argue over coverage. The dishwasher didn't limp as badly. He'd been given a temporary assistant for peak shifts, and HR had scheduled his first medical evaluation through the company's health partner. At closing, the team gathered in the dining room. No one looked rushed to leave. The energy was calm, focused. Quentin stood near the front. 3 days ago, this place couldn't pass a basic inspection. Today, we're in a full shift without a single safety issue, no equipment failures, and no complaints. That's because of you. No applause. Just quiet attention. You've earned raises. Every one of you. They'll go into effect next pay cycle. You'll also have more input on the schedule. We're forming a rotating leadership panel, 2 team members from the floor, 2 from the kitchen. You'll meet monthly with me or someone from my office. He looked around. We're not going back to the way things were. Not here. Not anywhere else. Angela asked, what about the other locations? I'm starting evaluations next week, Quentin said. We'll be using Westwood as the model. Peter raised a brow. We're the model now. Quentin nodded. You showed what happens when people are given the tools, trust, and support they need. He let that sit for a moment, then added, you've also got something else. Protection. If any of you are ever pushed to cut corners again, call me direct. He handed out a small card to each person, just his initials and a private number. Ariel held hers up. You expect us to use this? I hope you never need to, he said, but it's there. The team began to disperse. Luis returned to the kitchen to shut down the burners. Danny helped Angela count the drawer. Peter lingered near the window, looking out at the dark lot. Quentin walked over. You thinking about leaving? He asked. Peter glanced over. I was. A week ago. And now? I think I want to see how far this actually goes. Quentin offered a handshake. Peter looked at it, then shook once firm. I'll keep showing up, he said. Quentin nodded. Then I will too. He waited until the last light was off, then locked the front door behind him. The restaurant sat quiet under the street lamps, the new sign catching the glow just enough to read the words added beneath the name. Fresh.
Fair.
Forward. Quentin stood for a moment longer, then walked to his car, already thinking about which location he'd visit next.